You talk too much. Not because you're passionate, not because you're intelligent. You talk because you're afraid of what happens when you stop. You fill every gap with noise because silence terrifies you. It exposes you. It makes you feel invisible. And you can't tolerate being invisible because your entire identity depends on being seen, validated, acknowledged. That's weakness. Every word you speak without necessity is a confession. You're confessing that you need something from the person in front of you. Approval, attention, agreement. You're reaching out with your voice like a beggar reaches out with his hand. And people see it. They feel it. Even if they can't name it, they register your desperation at a level deeper than conscious thought. This video will teach you why silence is the only language of power. Not charisma, not persuasion, not influence. Silence. The deliberate, calculated, unbreakable refusal to offer yourself for free. But understand this. Most people should stop watching now. What I'm about to show you will ruin you for normal interaction. You'll see the game everywhere. You'll see yourself losing it constantly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's no going back to comfortable ignorance. If you're still here, you've accepted the terms. Let's begin your dissection. Silence is a test, and you fail it every single time. When someone stops talking, when a pause stretches longer than 2 seconds, you panic. You rush to fill it. You ask a question. You make a joke. You repeat something you already said. You do anything except sit in the discomfort of empty space. Why? Because silence reveals hierarchy. The person who breaks first is the subordinate. Always, the person who holds the silence owns the frame. They control the emotional temperature of the room. They decide when the conversation resumes. They are the king. You are the court jester, dancing for scraps of attention. Watch what happens in any negotiation. The amateur makes an offer and immediately starts explaining it, justifying it, defending it. He's terrified of the silence that follows his proposal, so he dilutes his own power by talking himself down. The professional makes the offer and says nothing. He doesn't blink. He doesn't fidget. He sits in the discomfort like a stone sits in water, and the silence becomes unbearable for the other person. They start negotiating against themselves. They offer concessions that weren't asked for. They reveal their desperation. Silence is not the absence of communication. It's the most violent form of communication. It says, I don't need you. I don't need this conversation. I don't need your approval. I can exist here, in this void, indefinitely. Can you? You can't. That's why you lose. The next time someone finishes speaking, count to 5 before you respond. Do not fill the gap. Do not soften the tension. Let them sit in the void they created. Watch what happens. Watch them scramble to interpret your silence. Watch them offer you power you didn't even ask for. Most people will fail this within the first attempt. They'll break at 2 seconds. If you can hold 5, you're already separated from the herd. You give yourself away for nothing. You respond to every text immediately. You answer every question in full. You show up to every invitation. You make yourself endlessly available because you believe availability equals kindness, generosity, connection. It doesn't. Availability equals worthlessness. Think about anything you value. Money, time, rare objects, high-status people. What do they all have in common? Scarcity. You don't value air because it's everywhere. You value gold because it isn't. You don't respect the person who's always free. You respect the person whose time is a prize. When you respond instantly, you teach people that your time has no competing demand, that you were sitting there, waiting for them, that you have nothing better to do than serve their need for attention. You've positioned yourself as the servant, and once that frame is set, it never reverses. Powerful people are hard to reach, not because they're busy, because they understand that access is leverage. Every time you make someone wait, you increase the perceived value of the interaction. You create uncertainty, and uncertainty creates obsession. Have you ever noticed how you think about the person who doesn't text back more than the person who does? That's not coincidence. That's psychology. The unavailable person occupies mental real estate. The available person gets forgotten the moment the conversation ends. You think you're being nice. You're being weak. Delay every non-urgent response by a minimum of 2 hours, even if you saw the message. Even if you have the answer, let the silence stretch. Let them wonder. Let them realize that access to you is not guaranteed. Do this consistently and watch how people begin to treat your words with more weight, your time with more respect, your presence with more hunger. If you're uncomfortable with this, you're still operating from a place of servitude. And servants don't write the rules. People don't chase what chases them. You follow people around emotionally. You initiate conversations. You check in. You ask how they're doing. You offer help they didn't request. You're trying to create connection by being present, available, generous. You're creating contempt. The moment you pursue someone, you hand them the power. You've declared that you need the relationship more than they do. And once that imbalance is established, the dynamic is set. They become the gatekeeper. You become the petitioner. Withdrawal is the correction. When you remove your attention, your energy, your emotional investment, people notice. Not because they miss you, because their ego registers the absence of your validation. You are a mirror reflecting their importance back to them. When you take the mirror away, they feel smaller, and they will come looking for it. This is not a game. This is how the human nervous system works. We are wired to pursue what moves away from us and ignore what moves toward us. Every child knows this instinctively. They chase the ball that rolls away. They drop the toy that's handed to them. You've forgotten this because you've been taught that love means pursuit, that care means constant presence, that absence equals cruelty. It doesn't. Absence equals power. Presence equals servitude. And the person who withdraws first controls the entire relationship. Identify the person you invest the most emotional energy into, the person you text first, the person you make plans around, the person whose approval you unconsciously seek, then stop. Completely. No explanation, no dramatic exit. Just withdraw your attention and redirect it elsewhere. Do not check their reaction. Do not wait for them to notice. Operate as if they no longer exist in your hierarchy of importance. Watch what happens within 2 weeks. If you can't do this, it's because you're addicted to the role of servant. And addicts don't recover by negotiating with the substance. You react to everything. Someone criticizes you, you defend. Someone praises you, you glow. Someone ignores you, you spiral. You're a puppet on emotional strings, and everyone around you knows exactly which strings to pull. This is why you're controllable. Powerful people do not react. They respond. And there's a universe of difference between the two. Reaction is immediate, unconscious, and driven by ego. It's the nervous system trying to protect itself from perceived threat. When you react, you've already lost. You've shown the other person exactly where you're vulnerable. You've given them the map to your interior. Response is delayed, calculated, and driven by strategy. It's the conscious mind choosing whether engagement serves your interest. When you respond, you maintain frame. You stay in control of the interaction. You reveal nothing except what you choose to reveal. Watch a weak person in conflict. Their voice rises, their face flushes, their body tenses. They're leaking information everywhere. You can see their pain, their fear, their need to be right. They've handed you every weapon you need to destroy them. Watch a powerful person in the same situation. Their voice stays level. Their face remains neutral. Their body doesn't move. They pause before speaking. And when they do speak, it's surgical. No excess, no emotion, just the minimum necessary to end the exchange on their terms. You think emotional expression equals authenticity. It doesn't. It equals vulnerability. And vulnerability without leverage is suicide. The next time someone tries to provoke you, say nothing for 10 seconds. Let the silence absorb their aggression. Feel the impulse to defend yourself. Then let it pass like a wave. When you finally speak, make your voice quieter than normal, slower than comfortable. Respond to the content, not the emotion. Watch how they lose power in real time. Watch how your stillness becomes a mirror that reflects their chaos back at them until they are the only one drowning in it. This is the point of no return. Once you master emotional stillness, you'll never be able to tolerate your old reactivity again. It will feel like weakness. Because it is. You explain yourself constantly. You tell people how hard you worked. You describe your process. You justify your decisions. You preempt criticism by listing everything you considered. You think this makes you look thorough, thoughtful, intelligent. It makes you look insecure. Competence doesn't explain, it demonstrates. The master doesn't tell you about the technique. He shows you the result, and the result speaks with a volume that words can never match. When you feel the need to talk about what you're doing, it's because you doubt the thing itself is enough. You're trying to inflate its value with narrative. You're compensating for a deficit you sense but won't admit. Powerful people let their work carry the weight. They don't frame it. They don't contextualize it. They don't apologize for it. They place it in front of you and wait for you to recognize its value. If you don't, they move on. Your recognition is not required for the work to be valuable. This applies to everything: your abilities, your decisions, your boundaries. If you have to explain why you're saying no, you're negotiating your right to say no. If you have to explain why you're qualified, you're admitting doubt about whether you are. The king doesn't explain why he's king. He sits on the throne, and the throne does the talking. For the next week, eliminate all self-explanation from your speech. When someone asks why you made a choice, say it's the choice I made and stop. When someone questions your capability, demonstrate it or decline to engage. Do not justify. Do not elaborate. Do not seek understanding. Operate as if your decisions are self-evident truths that require no translation. You'll feel rude. You'll feel arrogant. You'll feel exposed. Good. That discomfort is your ego realizing it no longer controls you. You negotiate everything: your boundaries, your standards, your self-respect. Someone pushes and you move. Someone complains and you adjust. Someone demands and you consider. You're in a constant state of diplomatic compromise with people who don't respect the territory you're defending. Why? Because you believe flexibility equals strength, adaptability equals intelligence, willingness to meet people halfway equals maturity. It doesn't. It equals surrender. Territory is not won through negotiation. It's claimed through refusal. You don't explain your boundaries, you enforce them. You don't debate your standards, you embody them. You don't defend your self-respect. You withdraw it from anyone who treats it as negotiable. Machiavelli understood this. A prince who negotiates his authority loses it, not because the people are ungrateful, because they interpret negotiation as weakness. And weakness invites conquest. You've been taught that rigidity is the problem, that the refusal to compromise is arrogance, that holding firm makes you difficult. Exactly. Difficult people get respected. Flexible people get used. And the difference between the two is whether you're willing to let someone be uncomfortable with your boundaries long enough for them to accept that the boundary isn't moving. Most people break here. They feel the tension, they feel the other person's frustration, and they soften. They create exceptions. They make one-time allowances that become permanent patterns, and once you've moved the line, it never returns to its original position. Identify one boundary you've been negotiating. Maybe it's your time. Maybe it's your energy. Maybe it's a relationship pattern you've tolerated longer than you should have. State the boundary once, clearly, without apology or explanation. Then enforce it absolutely. No exceptions. No context-dependent flexibility. No, just this once. When someone tests it, say nothing. Just hold the line. Let them break against your refusal until they realize the line doesn't move. If you can't do this, you're still afraid of losing people. And fear of loss is the signature of someone who doesn't understand their own value. You came here as a servant. You spoke when you should have been silent. You gave when you should have withheld. You explained when you should have demonstrated. You pursued when you should have withdrawn. You reacted when you should have responded. You negotiated when you should have held. Every single one of those behaviors was a declaration of subordinate status. And you performed them automatically, unconsciously, because you were trained to believe that power comes from being more available, more expressive, more accommodating. It doesn't. Power comes from being less accessible, less reactive, less willing to dilute yourself for the comfort of others. Silence is not a tactic. It's a posture. It's the external expression of an internal reality. You don't need anything from anyone. You're complete. You're sovereign. You exist on your own terms, and the world can accept those terms or be dismissed. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is performance. This is authority, and authority doesn't perform. It simply is. If you've made it this far, you're different now. Not because you learned something, because something inside you recognized a truth it already knew, but had been taught to suppress. You were always capable of this. You were always meant to operate from this frame. You just needed permission to stop apologizing for it. There are levels to this that can't be taught in a single video. Silence is the surface. Beneath it is posture. Beneath posture is philosophy. Beneath philosophy is identity. And identity is where the real transformation happens. Most people will watch this, feel temporarily empowered, and return to their default patterns within 72 hours. Because information doesn't change behavior. Repetition does, enforcement does, consequences do. If you want the deeper framework, the systems, the psychological architecture that makes this permanent, you know where to find it. But understand, it's not for everyone. It's not even for most people. It's for the ones who've already decided they're done being servants. The rest can keep talking. You, stay silent and watch what happens.